So if you've watched my channel at all this year, then you're probably aware that I'm on a quest to create my own cinematic universe using abandoned superheroes from the public domain. One of the characters that I haven't really focused a lot of time on until now is the main villain of the story, Landor, the maker of monsters. I know, you've never heard of him. This obscure character tucked away in a middling late 30s, early 40s comic book is a tragic story ripe for reimagining. But before you hear it, you must first understand the comic book concept of filler stories. In the early superhero days, most comic book publications were anthologies, separated by genre. Action Comics had action stories, Detective Comics had mystery stories, Famous Funnies had comedies, you get the idea. As comics exploded in popularity, more companies started producing them, resulting in other creative names. Crash Comics, Thrilling Comics, First Romance. Some OGs might remember Speed Comics, which featured Shock Gibson, one of the earliest lightning themed superheroes. But the thing is, writing and drawing stories for those featured characters takes time, and a big selling point of these early magazines was the number of stories that you would get in a comic. So, while a typical issue might feature 2 or 3 popular characters, in between the ads, publishers would print filler stories. One-shot characters were a series with limited page counts made from low-budget commissions to make readers think they were getting more bang for their buck. Enter Landor. Written and illustrated by Bob Powell, who seemed to make a living from freelancing various spooky horror titles during comics' golden age, the story is, to put it bluntly, a bit of a Frankenstein knockoff. Each episode is only 2 pages long, front and back, and based on his bibliography, was probably thrown together in between or during his bigger projects. Still, just because something rips off a classic work doesn't mean that it's bad. Landor's story begins in typical horror schlock fashion, introducing us to the mad scientist as he experiments on one of his many undead monsters. By chance, he's visited by Anthony and Marcia Torrance, who have stumbled upon his spooky castle while trying to find shelter from a terrible storm. During their stay, Landor's monster springs to life and begins wreaking havoc on his lab. But upon seeing Marcia, the monster begins to calm. Landor then pulls a gun on his guests, demanding that Marcia stay to soothe the creature until his work is completed. Anthony springs forward to fight back, but is quickly subdued. As Landor then attempts to put Marcia under anesthesia, the monster becomes incensed and lashes out at him. Anthony reawakens and, seeing Marcia in the creature's arms, goes on the offensive. A fire is sparked in the ensuing struggle, and as the betrothed make their escape, the castle is engulfed in flames, presumably killing the Mad Doctor and his horrific creation. In the next issue of Speed Comics, while Shock Gibson saves the day, Landor, now a ghastly ghoul himself, has survived the fire and brings another creature to life, a winged 7-foot-tall undead woman, and sends her after the couple as they make their way away from the wreckage. When Anthony is knocked out cold, Marcia thinks fast and takes a torch to the monster's wings. As it plummets to its death, Landor calls out to the couple, proclaiming that he will have his revenge before he himself leaps off the ruined castle's balcony to an uncertain end. He's still alive. Don't worry, he's still alive. In the following issue, Landor creates supersized mosquitoes and sicks them after the couple, who are now back at their own home, which is also a castle, oddly enough. One of the mosquitoes grabs Marcia and takes her back to Landor's hideout. There, she finally pulls off his hood and reveals the monster underneath. Anthony shows up with a gun and blasts the mosquitoes to bits. The pair short-circuit a generator in Landor's lab, then hightail it out of there before the entire place explodes into pieces. Anthony then exclaims, "No one could live through that. Landor must certainly have been killed." He'll be back. He's like a bad penny, this guy. He just keeps turning up. Next issue, It gets weird. So there's this group of armored madmen with flamethrowers terrorizing New York City. We learn that Anthony works for a branch of the military, and despite his efforts, the government is totally unable to stop the threat. Out of nowhere, Landor shows up and offers to build a monster that can kill the mysterious firemen on the condition that if he is successful, the military will turn Anthony over to him so that he can finally get his sweet revenge. Ready to die for country, Anthony agrees and heads to Landor's lab, where the dastardly villain has been working on a giant 20-foot-tall robot infused with a human brain. Landor switches the monster on and orders it to attack the fire brigade. In seconds, it demolishes the enemy, but then turns to attack its maker. In a climactic chase scene, Anthony puts his life on the line to down the rampaging robot, saving Landor from sure destruction. Grateful, Landor releases Anthony from captivity, but again pronounces that one day he will have his revenge. Issue number 5, Landor's got a new spooky castle, and he's called upon by 2 mysterious men asking him to tunnel into a government treasury vault to help them steal a large sum of money. Maybe he's paying for his new castle by doing a bunch of odd jobs. Who knows? Landor agrees to help them if, in return, they capture Marcia Torrance for him. So they agree and head off to snatch her. Meanwhile, Landor injects a mole with growth serum to turn it into a 12-foot-tall menace. Marcia gets kidnapped, the baddies start tunneling, Anthony gives chase, and foils the attempted robbery by causing a massive cave-in. And at this point, even he's not buying that Landor will stay dead. Next episode's pretty much the same formula. Landor makes a 2-foot-tall cat lady hybrid, sends it to attack Anthony's niece. Anthony then shows up, beats Landor to a pulp, and escapes his castle as the villain appears to meet his doom. Don't worry, it's gonna get better. In the next issue, Landor gets visited by a lady caller, Dr. Sina Zarat, one of the world's leading biologists. Zarat has been following Landor's work and wants in on his experiments. So the two enter into a partnership, combine their knowledge, and just a couple of weeks later have made Krita, a decidedly unmonstrous-looking monster, who agrees to act as Landor's eternal servant. With the experiment a success, Zarat has fallen madly in love with Landor, but he's hesitant to fully return her feelings, worrying that his physical deformities will eventually drive her away. Despite himself, Landor embraces her, but their moment of affection is quickly interrupted when Krita appears mad with jealousy and lashes out at Zarat. The Torrances, of all people, show up to join the fight, and Landor and Anthony have to work together to kill Krita. They succeed, but the damage has been done. Dr. Zarat dies from her wounds, and Landor is arrested for his various crimes against humanity. The issue ends with these solemn words. With the doctor in his arms, Landor is led away to prison, a dejected figure hating the world. By the next issue, Landor has escaped from prison, returned to his lab, and constructed yet another monster to kill the Torrances. Malfunctioning equipment leads to the damage of his perfect super soldier, and with disgust, Landor realizes he now has a ghoulish hunchback named Gonda to do his bidding. It soon becomes apparent that this botched creation has got a few screws loose. He accidentally kidnaps a guest at Anthony Torrance's house, and old Tony mounts up on horseback, rides to Landor's castle, and settles the score. Something weird happens in the next story. Out of nowhere, Anthony's name gets changed to Jack Torrance? I have no idea why. Jack and Marcia go out sailing, and Landor sends a fish-human hybrid after them. The creature manages to get a hold of Marcia and brings her back to Landor's lab. Landor gets far enough to inject her with a serum that turns her blind. Enraged, Jack travels to the castle, beats him to a pulp, and forces Landor to give him the antidote. You think this guy would give up, right? Nope. Next issue, Landor has hired a pair of hoodlums to capture both Jack Torrance and a famous criminologist named John Powers. He places Powers in the hot seat and reprograms his mind, then together they head to a bank and frame Jack Torrance for a jewel heist. I guess he's robbing banks now, my guy. Now facing prison, Jack hires a detective to take his case, who in return tracks down Landor, frees Powers, and exposes the scheme. Jack Torrance is freed from prison, and is it just me, or did a comic book somehow recast the main character? The final issue of Landor, Maker of Monsters, starts out innocently enough. A frustrated and utterly defeated Landor goes for a stroll outside of his castle, at a loss for how to get revenge. He happens upon a crook named Spike Hart and enlists his services. Hart is soon led into his lab and transformed into a monstrous Tiger Man, then sent out to deal with Jack Torrance once and for all. That night, the Tiger Man springs into action, knocking Jack out cold. Thinking quickly, Marcia and her butler fetch a pistol and shoot the Tiger Man dead. Landor then shows up on the scene, finally with a gun of his own, and the butler takes a bullet, giving a resuscitated Jack the opportunity to throw Landor out the window. His beast defeated, Landor drags himself to his car and drives off. The butler survives. Just in case you cared, the comic concludes by asking, will Landor dare to strike at Jack Torrance again? Watch for the next issue of Speed Comics. To which we can safely conclude that the answer is no, Landor's story never showed up in Speed Comics again. In fact, without warning, Speed Comics itself went on a 7-month hiatus. So it took me about a year of looking into this, but evidently the magazine's publisher went out of business, and their periodical were eventually acquired by publisher Harvey Comics. It took till March of 1941 for the publication to finally start back up, but when it did, the original creator of Shaka Gibson had left the series, leaving the headline character in limbo. And filler stories mean nothing if the comic's main players go undrawn. So, the company turned to Bob Howell to continue writing and illustrating their big headline hero. And all at once, the maker of Landor was on to bigger and better things. This video was sponsored by Squarespace. They've got everything you need to make a beautiful website. Start by choosing from one of their stunning customizable templates and then shape it to your specific needs. Let's say you want to start a podcast, but you don't want to have to deal with all of that annoying logistical stuff. Their Audio Blocks feature handles it for you. Maybe you want to build a private community. They offer member areas. Even if you have an idea for a business, they can help you set up your online storefront. You can check it out for free by starting a trial at squarespace.com. If you like the experience, then when you're ready to launch your site in full, head over to squarespace.com/AustinMcConnell to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.